You can't buy the smell of a running engine. Not really. I'm not talking about new car smell. That's just a chemical cocktail of plastics and adhesive. I'm talking about the good stuff, the real stuff. The metallic tang of two-stroke oil, the faint whiff of burnt rubber, and the sharp, hot metal perfume of a 5-horsepower Briggs & Stratton engine that's been coughing its way to life. It's the smell of skinned knuckles, greasy rags, and a problem solved. It was, in a word, the perfect Saturday. "Is it ready, Dad? Is it ready?" My son, Leo, was vibrating next to me, his helmet already buckled. At 10 years old, he exists in a state of perpetual, vibrating impatience. "Hold your horses, champ," I said, wiping a streak of black grease on my jeans. They were my garage jeans, a holy artifact so stained with oil and paint that my wife, Sarah, had tried to accidentally throw them out twice. "We have to let the Angry Badger warm up." That was our name for it. The Angry Badger was a go-kart I'd found on Craigslist for $50. The ad said, "Runs good, needs TLC." This was a spectacular lie. It ran in the same way a man having a heart attack jogs. And TLC apparently stood for total lack of compression. We'd spent 3 weekends rebuilding the carburetor with YouTube videos, replacing the pull cord, and welding a rogue wheel spindle. And now it was alive. The little engine was putting along, thuk, 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 sounding for all the world like a very angry badger trapped in a metal trash can. It was beautiful. This, I thought, is fatherhood. This is real American bonding. We weren't in Harmony Creek Estates, a planned community so sterile it made a hospital operating room look like a dive bar. No, we were in the garage, man's last bastion. Out in the beige-on-beige hellscape of Harmony Creek, my neighbors were probably engaging in scheduled play experiences or curated family leisure time. Here, we were making noise and getting dirty. "Okay, it's not gonna get any warmer," I said, giving the cracked vinyl seat a pat. "Take it easy. Sidewalk only. 6 miles an hour, tops. And if you see anyone, you hit the kill switch. Got it?" "Got it!" Leo hopped in, his grin so wide it was barely contained by his helmet. He stomped the gas. The engine sputtered into a furious thwap, and the Angry Badger took off. It was glorious. He was putting along the pristine, curved community sidewalk at the blistering pace of a brisk walk. He was a low-speed rebel, a tiny, helmeted Marlon Brando on a quest for, well, for the end of the cul-de-sac. I pulled out my phone, filming. I was already mentally composing the text to my buddies. "Look at this. I'm basically the best dad in the world." The ride lasted exactly 90 seconds. I saw her before I heard her. Brenda. Brenda wasn't just our HOA president. Brenda was the HOA. She was a 50-something busybody who wore beige capri pants and sensible walking shoes that squeaked on the pavement. She didn't walk. She approached. She moved like a shark that had smelled one drop of unpermitted, non-harmonious fun in the water. And she was holding the binder. The 3-ring binder was her weapon of choice. It was a 3-inch thick behemoth labeled Harmony Creek Estates. Covenants, conditions, and restrictions. It was, by all accounts, her Bible, her Constitution, and I suspected, her only real friend. "Mark." She never just started talking. She always began with an ahem or by saying your name like she was disappointed you'd shown up at her intervention. "Brenda, great day, huh? Sun's out." I was still filming, hoping she'd just, not. "Ahem." she squeaked to a halt, planting herself directly between me and my son. Leo, seeing the roadblock, dutifully hit the kill switch. The angry badger died with a sad foot. "Mark," she said, her voice dripping with the kind of condescension usually reserved for people who try to use an expired coupon. "What is that?" She gestured to the go-kart. "That, Brenda, is a go-kart. K-A-R-T. And that," I pointed to Leo, who was now frozen, "is a child. C-H-I-L-D. You may have seen them before. They make noise sometimes. It's a design feature." Her thin lips pressed into a thinner line. She wasn't amused. Brenda had never been amused. I'm convinced she was born with a clipboard in her hand. "Mark, you know the rules." She was already flipping through the binder. I swear the pages were color-coded. Lick, flip, lick, flip. "Ah, yes, here we are." She adjusted her glasses and began to read, her voice adopting a formal, nasal tone. Section 4, Paragraph B, as in blight. No unlicensed motorized or recreational vehicles are to be operated on community pathways, sidewalks, or green spaces. It's a clear violation. I sighed. The perfect Saturday smell was being replaced by the scent of her lavender-scented hand sanitizer. "Brenda, come on. It's a toy. My electric toothbrush has more horsepower. Seriously, Mrs. Henderson's mobility scooter," I pointed down the street to where our elderly neighbor was zipping along at a cool 8 mph, "is way faster than this thing. You gonna cite her?" Brenda looked down her nose. "That is community-approved mobility assistance. This," she gestured to the angry badger, with a look of profound disgust, like it had just insulted her mother, "is a nuisance. It's loud, it's leaking, fluid, on the community aggregate, and it is uninsured." "It's leaking pride, Brenda. I am issuing a written citation." She was already scribbling on a carbon copy pad she'd produced from a hidden pocket. "You have 24 hours to remove it from public view and cease all operation. If the vehicle is seen again, you will be fined $500 per day." She ripped the pink copy off and handed it to me. "Have a harmonious day, Mark." She squeaked away, her mission of joy murder complete. I looked at the citation. I looked at Leo. He had his helmet off, and his lower lip was trembling. He'd been so proud. He'd helped me weld that spindle. He'd learned the difference between a socket wrench and a box wrench. And now he looked like I'd just told him Santa Claus was being audited by the IRS. He was crushed. And that's when something inside me, a little cotter pin of dad logic, just snapped. Sarah, my wife, came out the front door, holding a mug of coffee. She's the sane one. She's the one who reminds me that we chose to live here because the schools are good, not because we enjoy arguing about the precise legal definition of taupe. She saw the pink slip in my hand. She saw the look on my face. Her eyes went wide. "Oh God, Mark, don't." "Don't what?" I asked, my voice a little too calm. "Don't do the thing." The thing is what she calls my tendency for principled escalation. The time I spent 6 months proving that our neighbor's prize-winning oak tree was technically 18 inches over the property line and was responsible for a 0.4-degree misalignment in our satellite dish. The time I responded to a parking ticket by writing a 40-page brief on the unconstitutionality of municipal revenue generation via civilian citation. "She's just doing her job, honey," Sarah said, trying to de-escalate. "It is loud. Just take him to the park. Let him ride it there." "It's not about the noise, Sarah. It's the principle." I looked at Leo, who was now kicking the front tire of the go-kart, his face a mask of defeat. "She crushed his spirit, honey. With a binder. You don't bring a binder to a go-kart fight. Mark, I crumpled the pink slip in my fist. She wants to talk about Section 4, Paragraph B. Fine, we can talk. I looked at Leo. Go get a snack, champ. Dad has to read. What are you going to read? He asked. I looked at the house, where my own copy of the HOA binder, issued at closing and used until now as a wobbly monitor stand, was waiting. Oh, just the sacred texts. Sarah put her head in her hands. I'm going back inside. I'll be watching that reality show about competitive miniature poodle grooming. You know, the sane stuff. As she walked away, I heard her mutter, Just don't buy a tank, Mark. Please don't buy a tank. A tank? Huh. Now there was an idea. That night, the kitchen table was my war room. The kids were in bed. Sarah was, as promised, deep-kneed in a marathon of poodle pageant, the volume just high enough to drown out the sound of my furious highlighting. My weapons were laid out. 1 yellow highlighter, 1 red pen, a 6-pack of pale ale, and the Harmony Creek Estates CCRs. 300 pages of densely packed legalese, bound in a vinyl binder that smelled faintly of laminating fluid and disappointment. This binder was Brenda's entire identity. She hadn't just read it. I'm pretty sure she'd written parts of it. She lived and breathed this document. And if I was going to beat her, I had to find a way to use her own scripture against her. I took a sip of beer and dove in. Section 1. Definitions, I read aloud, to no one. Harmonious shall be defined as any activity, structure, or state of being that does not detract from the visual or auditory placidity of the community. Visual placidity, I muttered. Is that even English? I skimmed. I found Section 4, Paragraph B, the go-kart killer. No unlicensed, motorized, or recreational vehicles. Brenda had me dead to rights. Unlicensed, check. Motorized, check. Recreational, check. It was a trifecta. Arguing against it was pointless. So recreational is the problem, I said to myself. Fine. My highlighter started to fly. For the next 2 hours, I fell down a rabbit hole of suburban madness. I learned things. I learned that our mailboxes had to be Model 4B, black, with a 3-inch-high gold leaf Times New Roman font numeral. No exceptions. I learned, in Section 7, Paragraph C, that any and all wind chimes, bells, or other auditory yard art must not exceed a decibel level of 25 dB, as measured from the nearest property line. 25 decibels. A loud whisper is 30. We were, by law, quieter than a library. I learned in Section 12 that permitted holiday inflatables, see Appendix F for approved list, must not exceed 8 feet in height or possess an internal motor that produces more than 40 decibels. It was a tome of trivial tyrannies. It was designed to slowly, methodically, sand away every sharp edge of your personality until you were as smooth, beige, and harmless as the vinyl siding on your house. Sarah came in to get a glass of water. I was on my 3rd beer and had highlighter stains on my nose. Find anything? She asked, trying to sound casual. I've found, I said, holding up the binder, that we are legally required to be boring. This document isn't just a set of rules, honey. It's a suicide pact for the human soul. Did you know our basketball hoops can't have red nets? Red. Apparently, it's a visually aggressive color. Mark, you're going to give yourself an aneurysm. Just let it go. It's a go-kart. It's not just a go-kart, I said, my voice rising. It's the principle. She brought a binder. She crushed Leo's spirit. She cited fluid on the community aggregate. She's got me on recreational, Sarah. But what if it's not recreational? What else would it be? You're not commuting to work in it. Exactly. I flipped a page. She's got me on section 4, but I'm looking at... I ran my finger down the index. Section 9. Property maintenance and seasonal equipment. My heart started to pound. Just a little. Sarah sighed. Oh no. No, listen! I started flipping pages. The bylaws are obsessed with maintenance. They hate fun, but they love upkeep. They have rules for lawn mowers, edgers, leaf blowers, pressure washers, mulchers. It's all in here. I found the section. I started reading, faster and faster, the highlighter squeaking across the page. The definitions were vague. They were beautifully, idiotically vague. Listen to this, I said, grinning. Homeowners are encouraged to maintain their properties in a state of good repair and seasonal readiness. Approved equipment for the purpose of property maintenance, landscaping, or seasonal upkeep is permitted. So, Sarah said, a go-kart isn't a leaf blower. But what is seasonal equipment? I asked, my grin widening. It's not defined. The rules restrict recreational vehicles. They encourage maintenance equipment. The rules are all about noise and safety, but seasonal equipment is exempt from most of the nuisance clauses provided, and get this, it's used for its intended purpose of property upkeep. Mark, she said, her voice full of dread. What are you thinking? I looked at her, my eyes gleaming with the light of a man who has just found a loophole in the matrix. I'm thinking, seasonal upkeep. What season do we have coming up? Winter. What happens in winter? It gets cold? It snows, honey. Or, it might. We get ice, right, on the driveway. It's a safety hazard. A huge safety hazard. We could be liable. We get like 1 inch of slush twice a year, Mark. And it's gone by noon. You use a shovel. We have a shovel. We have 2 shovels. A shovel is so manual, I said, dismissing the idea. I'm thinking bigger. I'm thinking seasonal precipitation management. I grabbed my laptop from the counter, clicked it open, and typed used heavy equipment into the search bar. Sarah just shook her head. I'm not part of this. I'm going to bed. The poodle groomers are down to the semifinals, and I don't want to know what you're doing. Just don't buy a tank. I'm serious. It's not a tank, I called after her. It's an investment in our property's winter safety and Leo's happiness. I was alone again, bathed in the glow of the laptop and the sweet, sweet smell of a loophole. My first search was wood chipper. I paused. Maybe a little too Fargo. Brenda was annoying, but I didn't want the cops that interested. Next, street sweeper. Too practical. It actually would clean the street. That felt like I'd be doing her a favor. Pass. Backhoe? Tempting. Driveway excavation is a form of maintenance, but it seemed unsubtle. I needed something that was technically maintenance, but was also the most absurd, oversized, glorious, and impractical middle finger I could find. Something that served a purpose so niche that its very existence in our neighborhood would be an act of defiance. I typed in used ice rink equipment. And there it was, on a government surplus site under Arena and Facilities Management. For sale, 1998. Olympia, $250. Ice resurfacer, Zamboni. My breath caught. Propane engine, I read. Runs good. Conditioner unit operational. Blade needs sharpening. Water tanks functional. 6-cylinder. Approx 6 tons. 4,500. Buyer responsible for transport. It was perfect. We live in Northern Virginia. It's not exactly Buffalo. The only ice we ever see is in our sweet tea. It was, technically, a seasonal precipitation management vehicle. It was designed to handle ice. It wasn't my fault if my rink was a 40-foot-long, 20-foot-wide patch of asphalt. Buyer responsible for transport. That was the kicker. How do you even move a Zamboni? I didn't care. I looked at the photo. It was a faded, sad, municipal blue. It was boxy and ugly. It looked like a giant, 6-ton squeegee. It was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. I clicked, "Buy it now." My credit card whimpered. I ignored it. "Okay, Brenda," I whispered to the empty kitchen. "You don't want a 5-horsepower toy? Let's see how you feel about a 6-ton propane-powered ice resurfacer." I closed the laptop and went to bed. I slept the sleep of the just. The next morning, Sarah was at the kitchen island, nursing her coffee, and pointedly not looking at me. She was radiating an aura of preemptive disappointment. "Morning, sunshine," I said, pouring myself a cup. "Mark." "Sarah?" "I got a fraud alert on the credit card." "Oh? Weird. These companies always so jumpy." I took a sip. A $4,500 charge at 2 a.m. to State Line Rink and Surplus. It was either you or someone has stolen my identity to make a very specific, very large, very weird purchase. "Okay, look," I said, putting my hands up. "I fixed the go-kart problem." "You... what? How did you fix..." "Mark, what did you buy?" "It's not a what, honey. It's an it." "Mark," her voice was dangerously quiet. "What is it?" "It's an investment. In safety. I told you I was worried about the driveway ice. It's a hazard." Her eyes narrowed. "You bought a flamethrower. You bought a giant industrial flamethrower, didn't you?" "What? No, God, Sarah, what do you take me for? A flamethrower is probably against Section, I don't know, 11? Pyrotechnics and open flames? No, I got us a resurfacer." "A resurfacer? Like, for the floor?" "Sort of. For an ice floor. It's an ice resurfacer." She just stared at me. The silence in the kitchen was total. "You bought a Zamboni." It wasn't a question. It was an accusation. "I bought a 1998 Olympia 250, to be precise. Zamboni is a brand name, like Kleenex. It's technically inaccurate, but colloquially understood." "You bought a Zamboni." "It's for Leo, you know, so he can help me maintain the seasonal integrity of our driveway." "Did you buy a tank, Mark?" "What? You told me not to." "A Zamboni is basically a tank that makes ice. Where are you going to put it? In the garage?" "Honey, it is the garage. This thing is substantial." "I'm not speaking to you," she said, picking up her mug. "I am going to water the HOA-approved geraniums. When I get back, I expect you to have a plan for this monstrosity." "Oh, I have a plan," I said, pulling out my phone. "I have a big plan. My first call was to Billy Bob's Heavy Haulin'." A gravelly voice answered on the second ring. "Haulin', talk." "Hi," I said, trying to sound professional. "I need to arrange a transport. I've purchased some equipment from State Line Rink and Surplus, and I need it delivered to my home." "What's the weight?" About 6 tons." "6, okay. What's the machine? Backhoe? Small dozer?" "It's, 1998 Olympia ice resurfacer." Silence. I could hear the guy breathing on the other end. A what? A Zamboni. You know, for ice rinks. You're taking this to a house? That's right, Harmony Creek Estates. It's a cul-de-sac. A cul-de-sac. He sounded tired. Sir, I'm gonna have to use a low-boy flatbed. That's a 50-foot rig. You got room for that? Oh, plenty, I lied. And you want this delivered? When? This was the beautiful part. I'd already checked the community calendar, taped inside our pantry door. How's, say, 10 a.m. on Saturday? I asked casually. Saturday at 10? Sure. That's fine. It's, $800. Cash, on delivery. You be there to sign for it. Wouldn't miss it for the world, I said. Oh, and by the way, this Saturday, that's the semi-annual Harmony Creek Community Yard Sale, right? How the hell would I know? Oh, just making conversation. See you Saturday? I hung up, grinning. The next few days were tense. Sarah communicated with me primarily through sighs and by leaving pamphlets for marriage counseling on my pillow. Leo, however, was ecstatic. I'd told him I'd handled the Brenda situation and that his new ride was on its way. Is it a four-wheeler, Dad? Bigger. A monster truck? Colder. This, predictably, led him to believe I had purchased an ice cream truck, and I did not correct him. Finally, Saturday arrived. It was a perfect, sunny, 85-degree July morning, and just as the calendar promised, Harmony Creek was in full-blown yard sale mode. The cul-de-sac was lined with card tables, overloaded with Beanie Babies, chipped mugs, and 80s workout VHS tapes. Brenda was, of course, supervising, walking around with her binder and, I kid you not, a tape measure, ensuring no one's sale table was encroaching on the community pathway. It was 9:59 a.m. I was on my porch drinking coffee, wearing my greasiest garage t-shirt. At 10:01 a.m., I heard it. It was the sound of a large animal dying. Psh, ker, chunk. Air brakes. Every head on the cul-de-sac turned. A massive cherry-red Peterbilt truck, the kind that hauls tanks or other smaller trucks, was attempting to back into our tiny beige cul-de-sac. The driver, a guy with a neck tattoo that just said pork, was reverse beeping beep, beep, beep so loud it was shaking the windows. The community yard sale just stopped. People froze, holding ugly sweaters and half-full lemonade cups. The truck jackknifed, blocking the entire street, its flatbed perfectly aligned with my driveway. And sitting on that flatbed, looking sad and massive, was my Zamboni. It was bigger than I had pictured. It wasn't just big. It was cosmically large. It blocked the sun. My two-car garage looked like a doghouse next to it. The driver, Pork, hopped down from the cab, wiping his face. "Mark Johnson," he yelled. "That's me," I said, giving him a cheerful wave. "Where do you want this thing?" "Just right in the driveway if you can. That'd be great." He looked at my driveway. He looked at the Zamboni. He looked back at my driveway. "You ain't got the room?" "Sure I do. It'll fit." He spat. "It's your asphalt, pal." For the next 20 minutes, the entire neighborhood watched in religious silence as Pork painstakingly unloaded a 6-ton ice resurfacer onto my property. He used chains and a hydraulic winch. The Zamboni screeched as it came down the ramp, its dead weight groaning. It barely fit. The front wheels were 6 inches from my garage door. The back conditioner unit, the giant squeegee blade contraption, was hanging out over the sidewalk by a good 3 feet. It was faded blue, flecked with rust, and smelled overpoweringly of mildew, low tide, and old propane. It was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. Leo ran out of the house. He stopped dead on the lawn. His ice cream truck dreams evaporated, replaced by something much, much realer. "Whoa," he whispered, his eyes as wide as dinner plates. "Is that for us?" "That, son," I said, putting my arm around his shoulder, "is your new go-kart." "800, cash," Pork said, holding out a greasy hand. I paid him. He got back in his truck, never once making eye contact, like he'd just delivered a black market kidney and wanted no part of the follow-up. He pulled away, hissing and groaning, leaving me, my son, and my 6-ton problem in the driveway. And then I heard the squeak. Squeak, 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 squeak. She was running. Actually running, her beige capri pants a blur, her binder clutched to her chest like a life preserver. She got to the edge of my lawn, panting, her face a color I'd never seen before, somewhere between sunburnt and aneurysm. "Mark Johnson." It wasn't a question. It was a roar. "What is that on your driveway?" I smiled, taking a calm sip of my coffee. "Morning, Brenda. Lovely day for a yard sale. This?" I gave the giant, rusted propane tank on the back of the Zamboni a friendly pat. "Oh, it's just my new driveway resurfacing and seasonal precipitation management vehicle. It's for the ice." Brenda looked at the sky. The sun was a blazing, merciless, white-hot circle. It was, as I mentioned, 85 degrees. It's July, Mark," she shrieked. "It's 90 degrees." "Can't be too prepared, Brenda," I said, shaking my head with mock seriousness. "Safety first. You, of all people, should appreciate that. It's right here in the bylaws. I checked." I pulled a single, highlighted page from my back pocket and held it out to her. Section 9. Encourages proactive property maintenance. I'm just being a good, harmonious neighbor, protecting my family from, winter. She took the page. Her hand was shaking. She read it. Her mouth opened, and it closed. No sound came out. She just sort of gaped, like a fish, a beige, furious, landlocked fish. She looked at the Zamboni. She looked at the highlighted paper. She looked at me. She made a small, choking noise, like a cat trying to pass a hairball, and then she just turned around. She stumbled back across the street, binder hanging limply at her side. I looked at Leo. He was looking at me with a kind of awe I hadn't seen since I'd guessed the correct ending to his video game. "Round 1, I said, taking another sip of coffee. "Round 1, Dad." Brenda, it turns out, isn't a give-up kind of person. She may have been staggered, but she wasn't beaten. She'd retreated to her beige command center, and at approximately 14 o'clock hours, she deployed her next weapon: the cops. I was in the driveway, trying to figure out how to open the door of the Zamboni, which was really just a rusted latch and a lot of hope, when a police cruiser rolled silently up to my curb. The officer, a young guy named Krupke, got out of his car slowly. He was wearing mirrored sunglasses, and he didn't take them off. He just stood there by his car for a solid minute, looking at the Zamboni. I think he was waiting for it to do something. Or for me to do something. Or maybe he was just praying for a different call. "Afternoon, sir," he finally said, walking onto the lawn. "Officer," I said, giving him a friendly wave. "Good to see you. How's things?" "Things are interesting, sir." He gestured with his chin. we got a call from a concerned citizen about an abandoned industrial vehicle. Said it was blocking the sidewalk. Abandoned? Heavens, no, I said, offended. This is my new project. Just got it delivered this morning. Isn't she a beaut? Officer Krupke looked at the 6 tons of rusted, mildewed blue metal. He looked at the giant, spiky metal blade on the back, which was, in fact, blocking the entire sidewalk. He looked at my 40-foot-long asphalt driveway. Right. Sir, what is this for? The concerned citizen said you told her it was for the ice? That's exactly right, officer, I said, all business. Driveway safety. We get a lot of potential precipitation here. I'm just being proactive. It's for maintenance. Krupke took a long, slow breath. I could see Brenda, the concerned citizen herself, watching from behind her pristine, HOA-approved plantation shutters. Sir, is this thing street legal? Oh, absolutely not, I said, laughing. That would be irresponsible. It's off-road equipment. It's staying right here on my private property. Perfectly legal. Just like, say, a very large riding mower or a backhoe. You don't need plates for a backhoe if you keep it on your property, right? This is just a very, very specialized lawn tractor. I saw the corner of Krupke's mouth twitch. He was trying so hard not to laugh. He knew. I knew he knew. He knew I knew he knew. We were in this weird, unspoken conspiracy of suburban absurdity, and Brenda was the only one not in on the joke. Well, sir, he sighed, pushing his glasses up. As long as it's on your property, I guess it's a civil matter. It's not breaking any criminal laws. But you gotta move it off the sidewalk. It's a violation. People in scooters need to get by. He was looking right at Mrs. Henderson's house. The man was a genius. Oh, the sidewalk. Of course. My apologies, officer. I'll get right on that, just figuring out the controls. You do that. He started walking back to his car. And sir? Yeah? Please, for the love of God, don't drive it on the street. Cross my heart, officer. Wouldn't dream of it. He nodded, got in his car, and drove away. I watched Brenda's shutters twitch in frustration. Okay, Leo, I yelled. Phase 2! The Zamboni ran, but it was ugly. And ugly wasn't a big enough statement. If we were going to do this, we were going to do it right. This wasn't just a vehicle. It was a monument. A monument to the principle. I pulled out my phone. Pimp My Zamboni was a go. I found a local place, Gus's Custom Auto and Body. The reviews were all about sick fades and fat details. Perfect, a gruff voice answered. Yeah, Gus's Custom. What you got? Hi, I said. I've got a project vehicle. I'm looking for a custom paint job. I'm thinking bright red, like Arrest Me red. And maybe some flame decals? Sure. Love a classic. What's the model? 69 Camaro? Cuda? 70 Chevelle? 98 Olympia. There was a long, heavy silence on the other end. A what? An Olympia. 250? Ice resurfacer? You want flames on a Zamboni? Yes, exactly. Can you do that? Dude, I'll be there in 20 minutes. I gotta see this. Gus, it turned out, was a massive tattooed guy with a ZZ Top beard and a t-shirt that said, "If it ain't custom, it's crap." He pulled up in a 50s Chevy truck that was so low to the ground it was practically scraping sparks. He got out, saw the Zamboni, and just stopped. He stood in my driveway for a full 5 minutes, just walking around it, rubbing his beard. Finally, he spoke. Huh. So, can you paint it? I asked. Oh, I can paint it, he said. He tapped the big fiberglass water tank. This is going to be a pain. It's fiberglass and sheet metal over a propane tank. You know that, right? I do. And you want flames. Big ones, Leo piped up. Yellow and orange. Big ones, I confirmed. And I was also hoping you could install a new horn. I already picked one out. I went into the garage and brought out the box. It was a giant, chrome-plated, 3-trumpet train horn, the kind they put on semi-trucks. Gus looked at the horn. He looked at the Zamboni. He looked at me. A slow, beautiful smile spread across his face. This, he said, his voice full of reverence, is the weirdest, dumbest, most beautiful damn thing I have ever been asked to do. It's art. So you'll take the job? Take the job? Man, I'm honored to take this job. We're gonna do this right. We're gonna sand it, we're gonna prime it, we're gonna hit it with a 3-stage candy apple red. And flames? Oh, we're doing flames. And dude, we're also adding neon underglow. Neon underglow, I whispered. It was more than I'd dreamed. A machine this majestic, Gus said, deserves to be seen at night. We'll do it right here. We'll bring the crew, set up a tarp. Can't exactly tow this to the shop. Gus, I said, shaking his hand, you're a visionary. For the next week, my driveway was a scene of controlled chaos. Gus and his 2 heavily pierced apprentices set up a giant, obnoxious, bright blue tarp, turning my driveway into a mast tent. The sounds of sanders, compressors, and a boombox blasting 80s hair metal filled Harmony Creek. Brenda, naturally, tried to shut it down. She showed up on day 2. Mark! This is an unapproved temporary structure, she yelled, pointing at the tarp. It's a vehicle cover, Brenda, I yelled back over the sound of a compressor and a very loud Scorpions guitar solo. Section 8, Paragraph F. Vehicles parked in driveways must be kept in good repair or covered. I'm just following the rules. It's covered. She cited me for noise. I pointed to the bylaw that stated construction and maintenance noise was permitted between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. It was 10:30 a.m. She left in a huff. While Gus's crew was painting, Leo and I got to work on the systems, which is to say, I siphoned the ancient sludgy gas from the tank and put in fresh propane. Okay, Leo, stand back. Way back, over by the mailbox. I climbed into the driver's seat. The dashboard was a mess of faded dials and switches labeled with words like conditioner and auger and water. I turned the key. Click. I turned it again. Click. Come on, you glorious beast, I muttered. I pumped the gas, even though I'm not sure that does anything on a propane engine. I turned the key one more time. Chug, 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 chug. Vroom! The engine roared to life. It didn't just start. It exploded. The entire 6-ton machine bucked and shuddered under me. The sound was deafening. It wasn't a go-kart's thwap. It wasn't a car's vroom. It was the deep, guttural, earth-shaking roar of an industrial engine designed to run indoors, where noise didn't matter. It sounded like a 747 was trying to taxi out of my driveway. Every dog hoe in a 3-block radius started barking. A car alarm went off. I saw Brenda's curtains twitch so hard she nearly pulled the rod off the wall. I love this thing. What, Dad? Leo was screaming. From the mailbox, covering his ears. It's alive! I roared. It's alive! I looked at the hydraulic levers next to the seat. One of them was labeled Conditioner Up-Down. The conditioner was the 8-foot-wide assembly of squeegees, blades, and augers on the back that was, at this moment, hovering 6 inches above my asphalt. Just a little test, I said to myself. I pulled the lever. With a loud hydraulic hiss, the entire 1,000-pound steel contraption lowered onto my driveway, and then I made the mistake of pulling the other lever, the one labeled Blade. A hidden motor kicked in, and the 8-foot-long razor-sharp steel blade designed to shave ice began to grind against my driveway. The sound it made. I cannot adequately describe it. It was the sound of God scraping his fingernails across the chalkboard of the universe. It was a high-pitched, metallic, bone-vibrating shriek that pierced the air, my skull, and the very soul of the neighborhood. Lights flicked on in houses up and down the street. My wife, Sarah, burst out the front door, wearing her bathrobe, her face a mask of pure, unadulterated horror. "Mark! Mark, what are you doing? Stop it! The neighbors are going to kill us! It sounds like you're murdering a train!" I couldn't hear a word she was saying. I was laughing too hard. "What?" I shouted back, giving the lever another little vroop shriek. "Can't hear you, just testing the hydraulics. Gotta be safe. Section 9. I disengaged the blade and lifted the conditioner. The glorious vroom of the engine settled back into a low, house-shaking rumble. I looked over at Brenda's house. Her front door opened. She just stood there, in the doorway, staring, her face pale. I gave her a little wave. She slammed the door. Phase 2 was complete. It was 2 weeks later. Saturday morning, 10 a.m. The timing, once again, was deliberate. The great blue mast tent had been taken down. The Zamboni, my Olympia, sat in the driveway, hidden under a massive, flame-retardant red tarp. The whole neighborhood was pretending not to watch. Mrs. Henderson had, coincidentally, decided to check her mail, a process that was now entering its 15th minute. My neighbor Bob was coincidentally watering a patch of his lawn that was, I noted, 90% concrete. Gus and his crew were there. Gus was wearing a clean Gus's Custom t-shirt for the occasion. Leo was bouncing on the balls of his feet. Sarah was watching from the front window, her arms crossed. She had made it clear she was not endorsing this. "You ready, kid?" Gus asked Leo. "Yes!" "All right," Gus boomed, loud enough for the whole cul-de-sac to hear. "I present to you the baddest damn ice machine on the planet." With a flourish, Gus and his guys grabbed the tarp and pulled it off. It was glorious. It was a masterpiece of suburban spite. The machine was a screaming, retina-searing candy apple red. It gleamed in the July sun, a 6-ton ruby of pure defiance. Gus hadn't just painted flames. He'd airbrushed 80s-style hot rod flames that licked up the sides from the front wheels, all yellow and orange fire, outlined in electric blue. The chrome-plated 3-trumpet train horn was mounted on the roof like a tiara. The wheels were freshly painted gloss black. The neon underglow tubes were tucked discreetly underneath, waiting for their moment of glory. And on the very front, where the faded Olympia logo used to be, Gus had airbrushed a new name, in magnificent Gothic script, the By-Law Breaker. "This," Leo whispered, his voice cracking with emotion. "This is the greatest day of my life." It's beautiful, Gus," I said, genuinely moved. That'll be We'll talk numbers later, Gus said, clapping me on the back. This one was for the portfolio. Now, you gonna fire it up or what? I looked up and down the street. The audience was assembled. Brenda's curtains were twitching. Oh, I'm firing it up. I climbed into the driver's seat. The smell of fresh paint and propane filled my nostrils. I put the key in. Chug, chug, vroom! The engine roared to life, louder and meaner than before. Gus must have tuned it. Hop in, champ, I yelled. Leo scrambled up and sat on the little passenger-side shelf next to me, grinning from ear to ear. Now, Mark, I said to myself, think this through. The bylaws. I had my binder page memorized. No unlicensed vehicles on community pathways. The sidewalk was a pathway. The street, however, was a public road. It's not a pathway. It's not a green space. It's pavement, maintained by the county. And as Officer Krupke had so helpfully pointed out, this wasn't a vehicle. It was off-road equipment. I wasn't driving. I was transporting my equipment. From my driveway to the other side of the cul-de-sac, which was also public property. It was a very, very short drive. You buckled in? I asked Leo. There were no seatbelts. Yeah! Headphones on? I'd bought him industrial-grade hearing protection. Yeah! I grabbed my phone, which was plugged into the new Bluetooth speaker Gus had installed in the dash. I hit my Safety First playlist. AC/DC's Thunderstruck exploded from the speakers, almost drowning out the engine. I put the transmission lever into D. The entire machine lurched. I stomped the accelerator. We were moving. We pulled out of the driveway at the absolutely terrifying top speed of 9 miles per hour. The bylaw breaker was on the hunt. We were a 6-ton, 12-foot-tall, 8-foot-wide, flame-painted, propane-belching, rock-and-roll blasting parade of one. I saw Bob, my neighbor, drop his hose. His jaw was on his concrete lawn. Mrs. Henderson just stared, her mail clutched in her hand. Kids were running out of their houses, cheering and pointing. Dads who had been washing their cars were giving me slow, respectful claps. I was their king. Now, Dad, do it! Leo screamed over the music. You got it! My hand reached up and pulled the chain for the new horn. It was not a beep-beep. It was a blart. It was the sound of a full-size locomotive bearing down on a stalled car. It was a deep, chest-cavitating, soul-shaking blast that echoed off the beige houses, rattled windows, and probably set off seismographs in the next state. A flock of birds I didn't even know was in the neighborhood burst from a tree 3 blocks away. I hit it again. Blart! We reached the turnaround at the end of the cul-de-sac. This, I shouted to Leo, is where we maintain. I pulled the hydraulic lever. Hiss, stunk. The giant conditioner unit dropped onto the public asphalt. I pulled the blade lever. Shriek! I did a full, glorious 9-mile-per-hour lap around the cul-de-sac, the blade grinding on the pavement. Thunderstruck blaring, the train horn trumpeting our arrival. I wasn't just resurfacing the road. I was resurfacing the soul of Harmony Creek. And then I saw her. Brenda. She was standing in the middle of her lawn, in her pink bathrobe and fuzzy slippers. Her phone was clutched in her hand. She wasn't just mad. She had transcended anger. She had entered a new, zen-like state of pure, unadulterated, bathrobe-clad rage. Her face was a brilliant, vibrating crimson. "Mark!" she was screaming, though I couldn't hear her over the music and the shuree. "I'm calling the police! You're terrorizing us! You're terrorizing the neighborhood!" I cupped my ear, giving her a friendly "what's that?" shrug. "What?" I shouted, a big friendly grin on my face. "Can't hear you, Brenda. Just doing some community maintenance. The street looked a little dirty. You're welcome." "Blart!" went the horn. "Shree!" went the blade. I saw her jab at her phone, her thumb mashing the screen. I did one more glorious slow-motion lap. As I pulled back toward my driveway, I saw the flashing lights. This time, Officer Krupke wasn't alone. He'd brought his sergeant. The sergeant, a tall man with a face like a granite cliff, stepped out of his car and grabbed his megaphone. "Sir," his voice boomed, electronically amplified. "Turn off the machine now!" I killed the engine. I killed the music. The sudden ringing silence was deafening. The only sound was the tink-tink-tink of the hot engine, and Brenda in the background making a high-pitched "ee" sound. The sergeant walked up, rubbing the bridge of his nose. Officer Krupke was behind him, and I swear on my life he was filming this on his personal cell phone. "Son," the sergeant said, his voice now a low, tired growl. You can't." "Can't what, Sergeant?" I asked, all innocence. You just can't drive a Zamboni down a public street with a train horn while grinding the pavement." "With all due respect, Sergeant," I said, "is there a law against it? It's insured as heavy equipment. I wasn't speeding. I'm just cleaning." "He's lying!" Brenda shrieked, running into the street, her robe flapping. "He's doing it to me! He's doing it to annoy me!" The sergeant held up a hand. "Ma'am, please go back to your lawn." He looked back at me. He looked at the giant, red, flame-painted monster in my driveway. He looked at the train horn. He looked at the fresh, circular scratches on the cul-de-sac pavement. He sighed. It was the sigh of a man who had seen too much. "Sir, technically, you're not breaking any criminal laws, as weird and as wrong as that feels to say. But you are creating a public nuisance, and you are damaging county property, and I am this close to impounding it." "How?" I started to ask. "I have no idea!" he roared, suddenly losing his cool. "I'd have to call a crane. It would cost $10,000. I am not doing that. So, take it back, now. Park it, and never, ever drive it on this street again." We were at an impasse. A great suburban standoff. Me sitting 9 feet in the air on my throne of defiance. The sergeant, granite-faced, on the pavement. Officer Krupke, behind him, pretending to check his radio while clearly still filming. And Brenda, on my lawn, in her robe, vibrating with so much rage I thought she might achieve fission. "Look," the sergeant said, pinching the bridge of his nose. "This is nuts. We're not coming back here for this thing. You all," he pointed at me, then at Brenda, "need to solve this. Right now. Like adults." I looked at Brenda. Her eyes were tiny slits of pure hatred. But I also saw fear. She was terrified of this machine. I saw my opening. I'm a reasonable man, after all. I climbed down from the driver's seat. "Sergeant, you're right," I said, putting on my most reasonable dad voice. "I'm a harmonious neighbor. I'm willing to compromise." I turned to Brenda. She flinched. "Brenda." "What?" she spat. "I will agree to mothball the bylaw breaker." "Mothball? I'll park it, right here." I patted its big, red, flaming fender. It stays on my driveway as a seasonal decoration, a reminder of our commitment to winter safety. I won't drive it. I won't even start it." Brenda narrowed her eyes. She knew there was a catch. And I took a deep breath. "You rescind the fine for the go-kart, and you, as HOA president, will propose an amendment to the bylaws, effective immediately." What amendment?" she whispered. "We'll call it the Leo Accords. Recreational toys, and we'll define that as under 10 horsepower, operated by a minor with a helmet, are permitted on community sidewalks on Saturdays between the hours of 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. Brenda's face went white. That's anarchy. That's chaos." "Ma'am," the sergeant cut in, his voice flat. "Take the deal." Brenda looked at the sergeant. She looked at the dozen neighbors, who were all watching, grinning. She looked at me. And then, her eyes drifted to the 6-ton, flame-painted, train horn-equipped monster in my driveway. She pictured that shriek and that blart for the rest of her natural life. She was beaten. "Fine," she hissed, the word escaping her lips like a puff of steam. "Saturdays, 10 to 2. But if I see that helmet off mark, we'll be perfect angels, Brenda. Harmonious, I promise." She just stared at me for another second, then turned, her fuzzy slippers flapping in defeat, and marched back to her beige fortress. The sergeant just shook his head. "Sir, don't make me come back here." "You won't, Sergeant. Thank you." He and Krupke left. The show was over, and so we have peace, a new, fragile peace, in Harmony Creek. Leo rides the Angry Badger every Saturday at 10:01 a.m. He wears his helmet. He waves to Brenda, who is always watching, always with her binder, but she's powerless. The Leo Accords were passed at an emergency HOA meeting. She had no choice. And the bylaw breaker? It still sits in my driveway. We call it the deterrent. It's covered by that beautiful, flame-retardant red tarp. It's a silent guardian, a watchful protector, a 6-ton reminder that there's only so far you can push a dad. Every once in a while, maybe once a month, when I get a passive-aggressive email from Brenda about my trash cans being out 10 minutes too late, I'll go out to the driveway. I don't start the engine. I don't have to. I just plug in the shore power, flick the switch for the neon underglow, and give a quick 3-second blast on the train horn. Blart! Just so she knows. Just so she remembers. Peace through superior firepower.